Every child deserves to be loved and cared for. Every child deserves to grow up in a safe home free from harm. In an ideal world, every child would be born to parents who will do these things, but sometimes this isn't the case. Sometimes people have children who they are either unable or unwilling to care for. When that happens, the children should be placed with someone who will care for them, who will step up and do what it takes to provide a loving home. But in this case, we see two little girls who were failed by every single adult they encountered. They were born to two parents who didn't want them, then placed into the care of a couple who never should have been trusted to begin with. And of course, what resulted is absolutely tragic and devastating. So with that being said, let's get into the case. Athena Brownfield was born September 6, 2018 in Lawton, Oklahoma to Wesley and Jasmine Brownfield. It was said that Athena's favorite color was purple. She loved to play dress-up, color, and sing Baby Shark. She absolutely adored her older sister, Adina, with family describing them as joined at the hip. However, by April of 2021, their mother dropped them off into the care of two friends, Alicia and Ivan Adams. We don't know a lot about the relationship between the couple and Jasmine, but she would later say that she just felt like she and Wesley were not adequate parents. They weren't able to provide for their children, so they dropped them off and never saw them again. They never checked in with them. They didn't provide any sort of assistance or support, nor did they inform anyone else of a change in custody of the girls. They just left them. For the year and a half that followed, Athena and Adina stayed with Alicia and Ivan in Cyril, Oklahoma, a small rural town of about 800 residents. Somewhere where everyone knows everyone and people leave their doors unlocked because nothing bad ever happens there. No one knew what was going on in that home this entire time. Neither of the girls were enrolled in school or any out-of-school activities. They didn't attend any doctor's visits during this time, and I don't think their extended family members ever saw them either. But by January 10th, 2023, the disturbing truth of what was really going on within that home would be uncovered. That morning, a mail carrier noticed a young child wandering around alone outside around the neighborhood. This was obviously concerning, so the mail carrier contacted local authorities who arrived shortly after. These officers located the child, who turned out to be then 5-year-old Adina. When officers asked her what she was doing outside, she said that she was home alone and was tired of being alone all the time. So she went out in search for something to do or someone to be with. After finding Adina, officers asked about who was taking care of her, and she told them. She referred to then 32-year-old Alicia Adams as either Mom or Allie, and then 36-year-old Ivan as either Dad or Uncle Ivan. Based on this information, officers got into contact with Alicia. When speaking with her and informing her of the situation, according to the arrest affidavit, Alicia asked the officer where her other child, then 4-year-old Athena, was. In that moment, the officer realized that not only was Adina out and wandering alone, but her little sister was now also missing. So to me, it seems like in this moment, Alicia realized that Adina was found, and she asked where Athena was to try and paint the picture that they both must have been wandering on their own, and then at some point, they got separated and now they needed to look for Athena. After all of this, police started an investigation into Alicia and Ivan to figure out what exactly was going on. This started by officers looking into their cell phone records to confirm their whereabouts in the weeks prior. They found that their cell phone data did not match the initial information they gave officers, which obviously is a big red flag. They found that on December 26, 2022, between 4:15 and 5:30 a.m., Ivan's phone traveled away from their home in Cyril and then took 225 west, heading towards Rush Springs, Oklahoma. Now, according to an acquaintance of Ivan who later spoke out about the case, Ivan and his friend owned a fence building company together. The friend who works with Ivan is this woman's ex-boyfriend. She said that she would work with her ex and Ivan to help build fences, and him and Alicia had even rented a property from them in Rush Springs, though they stopped paying rent for like a year, so they obviously kicked them out and they stopped talking, so it had been a while since they last saw him. But with that being said, this made sense for why Ivan's phone was headed out that way. He once lived there, so obviously he knew the area. But at this point, investigators still didn't know why he went out there the day after Christmas or why he lied about it. So by January 12th, 2023, officers took Alicia in for another interview, this time reading her Miranda rights to her. They informed her that they knew she was lying about her cell phone records, so she better start talking. At this time, Alicia admitted to the officer that they didn't do much to care for the girls. Like I said, they didn't enroll them in school or take them to the doctor for their checkups. She also admitted that they had left Athena and her sister at home alone multiple times in the past. But beyond this, Alicia had an even more disturbing story to tell. She admitted that at around midnight on Christmas Day, so December 25th, 2022, Ivan had beat Athena badly. He then held her up by her arms, at which point she was no longer moving and her eyes were barely open. He then laid her on the ground and punched her at least 3 more times in the chest, and after that, Alicia knew that Athena was dead. After this, Ivan left her residence with Athena by around 1 a.m. on December 26th. When he returned, he told her that he buried Athena near a fence line that was near their old residence in Rush Springs. He then placed a large broken branch over the burial site in hopes that this would keep anyone from noticing the freshly dug grave. Based on this information, of course, authorities issued a missing endangered person alert for Athena, notifying residents within a 15-mile radius of Cyril. They then dispatched officers to the area in Rush Springs where searches for the missing 4-year-old began. The property was massive and it was going to be a huge undertaking. So they brought out all-terrain vehicles and sniffer dogs and were joined by many volunteers from the community, all with hopes of finding Athena and uncovering the truth. Days after the searches started, they brought in ground-penetrating radar equipment to search underground and began searching within bodies of water in Grady County. These desperate searches lasted about a week until January 17th, 2023. On this day, authorities announced that they found a child buried on a property associated with the Adams family. At first, the remains were in such condition that they could not initially identify them as Athena, but the community knew deep down that they were her. For the days following this announcement, the community got together to mourn the loss of this precious little girl. They held a funeral for her, where those who interacted with her and her sister talked about all of their favorite memories of her.
We just got word from OSBI this afternoon. They have found the body of a child in rural Grady County, northeast of Rush Springs. They have not confirmed this is the body of 4-year-old Athena Brownfield. The remains will be sent to the medical examiner's office in OKC for an ID. Now, official court documents say Alicia told investigators Yvonne Adams beat Athena and then held her down on Christmas Day, and that allegedly happened at the home on West Nebraska Avenue in Cyril. Those documents also detail how Yvonne told Alicia that he buried her near a fence line that was next to her old residence in Rush Springs. Now, Ivan will be sent back here to Oklahoma from Arizona. He will be extradited on first-degree murder and child neglect charges. We'll continue to bring you the latest as we learn more.
Then, finally, by January 26th, the medical examiner did officially identify those remains as belonging to Athena. Going back just a bit, as the searches were being conducted on January 12th, Alicia was arrested and charged with 2 counts of child neglect. It was stated that she failed to protect Athena from physical abuse caused by her husband, who is thought to have beaten Athena to death, and then obviously neglect in terms of Athena being found wandering alone. Meanwhile, an arrest warrant was issued for Ivan, who was not at the home with Alicia. He was on the run. But thankfully, by the following day, on January 13th, 2023, Ivan was located and arrested in Phoenix, Arizona on charges of first-degree murder, felony child neglect, as well as unlawful removal of a dead body. He appeared in court initially in Maricopa County, where he said that he's going to fight his charges with everything he has. By January 19th, he was then extradited from Maricopa County Jail and was released into the custody of Oklahoma authorities. Once in Oklahoma, he was held without bond. As all of that was happening, the medical examiner was performing the autopsy to confirm the cause of death for Athena, and once that information was released, it added yet another twist to this case. Now, Athena had been found stuffed inside of a backpack, which was then buried in a shallow grave on the property just outside of Rush Springs. The medical examiner said that both 4-year-old Athena and the backpack together weighed just 25 pounds, with Athena herself weighing just 23 pounds. This meant that Athena was extremely underweight for her age, putting her far below the 3rd percentile for children her age. At her height and age, Athena should have weighed about 35 pounds. The ME reported that her cause of death was actually the result of acute pneumonia complicated by malnutrition. The ME ran a screening which detected rhinovirus, human adenovirus and bacovirus, and COVID-19. Each of these viruses are associated with the flu and/or the common cold and are often seen accompanying respiratory symptoms such as shortness of breath. They can also cause upper respiratory infections, which can then lead to pneumonia. So this poor child was sick with all these illnesses that typically are very much survivable by children. Healthy kids get COVID and the cold all the time, and it typically passes within a few days without any long-term complications. But because of how malnourished and neglected Athena was, her body could not fight these infections like a normal child could, which led to her developing pneumonia. For those of you who don't know, pneumonia is an infection where the air sacs within the lungs become inflamed and fill with fluid or pus, which leads to difficulty breathing. This infection was left untreated, so it likely progressed to respiratory failure, causing Athena's death. With all of these factors considered, her manner of death was listed as a homicide. The ME also noted that there was absolutely no sign of physical trauma found on Athena's body. No bruises, no broken bones, no organ damage that we typically see in these severe, fatal child beatings. This means that the story Alicia gave to authorities was just not accurate. There was no sign that Athena had been beaten to death. It's likely that both Alicia and Ivan took part in neglecting Athena. They clearly didn't feed her, take her to the doctor, or give her any care that a child would need to stay alive. They saw that she got sick, yet did nothing about it. As this kind of infection worsened, Athena likely would have been coughing constantly. She would have trouble breathing, likely wheezing. She was probably turning pale and gasping for air in the last hours of her life. These are all signs that Alicia and Ivan clearly ignored. Either that, or they paid such little attention to Athena that they just didn't even notice. Regardless, both Alicia and Ivan knowingly neglected Athena to death. And when the walls were closing in and authorities were about to find out she was dead, Alicia lied to the authorities, trying to blame the whole thing on her husband in order to save her own ass. But of course, the science doesn't lie. By November of 2023, Alicia's charges were upgraded from child neglect to first-degree murder. After spending some time in jail, the prosecutors in her case came to her with a plea agreement, which agreed to take the death penalty off the table in exchange for a guilty plea. According to the DA, it appeared that she was willing to go through with the plea deal when they first presented it to her. But at her plea hearing, she ripped up the plea agreement and pleaded not guilty. Her lawyers had no comment on why she wouldn't accept the plea, but the DA said that she literally decided a few minutes before the hearing that she was no longer accepting the plea deal. But now, because of this, her case will go to trial, and the prosecution will be going for the death penalty. Meanwhile, Ivan pleaded not guilty to his charges from the very start. He is currently awaiting his trial behind bars. As far as I've seen, their next court appearances are supposed to happen sometime in March, and their trials are supposed to start in April of this year. I will be closely following this case, and if there is a good bit of new information that comes out in the trial, I will make another video about this case. Otherwise, I will keep you all updated in the description box. For the months that followed, nothing further happened in this case until March of 2024, when Jasmine Brownfield, Athena's biological mother, was charged with 2 counts of child neglect. It was said that she left her 2 children in the care of Alicia and Ivan without following up or notifying any sort of courts in the change of guardianship. This is abandonment. As their biological mother, it is legally her job to make sure the children are cared for and are free of harm. By dumping them off with these 2 random people, she failed in this. It was her irresponsible actions that led them to being in the care of these 2 individuals who went on to murder her.
3 people are facing criminal charges in connection with Athena's disappearance and death. That includes Athena's biological mother, Jasmine Brownfield, along with 2 caregivers, Ivan and Alicia Adams. A probable cause affidavit says in April of 2021, Jasmine Brownfield left Athena and her 5-year-old sister in the care of the Adams. Jasmine Brownfield is due in court later today. Prosecutors say she admitted to having mental health issues and told investigators she didn't think she could care for her children. Court documents say Jasmine did not communicate with the Adams to see how her daughters were doing and never provided them with any money to care for the girls.
The district attorney, Jason Hicks, amended charges against both of them last month. Ivan Adams is charged now with 2nd-degree murder and child neglect. He was initially charged with 1st-degree murder after prosecutors say Alicia Adams lied, claiming that Ivan beat little Athena. The autopsy, though, showed Athena actually died from malnutrition, not from being physically assaulted. Prosecutors in Caddo County have since charged Alicia Adams with 1st-degree murder or 2nd-degree murder, which this will be up to a jury. Alicia Adams is also charged with obstructing an officer because the district attorney says she misled investigators and child neglect.
News outlets tried speaking with her in relation to the case and her charges, but she would not make any comment. As of right now, she has pleaded not guilty to her charges and is awaiting her trial, which should take place sometime this year. I also want to note that after all of these individuals were charged, Athena was placed into the custody of Child Protective Services. That was the last I saw regarding her, so I'm not sure if that is still the case or if she has been placed with family. I'm just really hoping for the best for that poor little girl. But with all of that being said, that is where the case currently sits. Family members of Athena have come out and said that this whole situation has been such a massive blow to the family, but to me, I think both girls were failed by everyone. They were first failed by their parents, who dumped them off with 2 individuals who clearly were unable and unwilling to care for 2 children. They didn't check in with them. They didn't notify any sort of authority to ensure they were cared for. They just abandoned them. They were then failed by their extended families, including aunts and uncles and their grandparents, all of whom could have checked in at some point to see what was going on with the girls, but they seemingly never did. Then finally, they were failed by these monsters, Alicia and Ivan. Based on how Athena was found and the level of neglect Athena faced, I think they simply left those girls to their own devices. I don't think they wanted to care for 2 young children. So instead of notifying the authorities that their mother dumped them there, instead of arranging something with maybe other family members, they just starved and tortured Athena, and likely her big sister too. Again, we know that they were left alone for extended periods of time, Athena even saying that she got tired of being alone all the time. I don't think they were fed very often at all, and I think at some point in all of this, Athena got sick. But, as I stated earlier, they either ignored her cries for help or didn't even know she was sick because they didn't pay any attention to her. No matter how you spin it, this case is devastating and never should have happened. My heart breaks for Athena just picturing what she probably went through in her final days and hours. All I can hope is that everyone involved, including Jasmine, Alicia, and Ivan, all have to pay for their part in what happened to her. And I hope that Athena can come out of this okay. That is all we can do at this point, is hope and wait. But that is all the information I have on this case, and now I want to hear from you guys. What do you think really happened? Do you agree with both Alicia and Ivan being charged with murder? If so, do you think they'll be convicted? What do you think of Jasmine being charged? Do you think that's fair? Let's discuss this and any other thoughts you have in the comments below. If you like this video, please make sure to go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to turn the notification bell on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. All will be linked down below. And if you have any case suggestions, please make sure to fill out the Google form, which is also listed down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.